everyone, Lu here. If you're new here, I love, and I mean love, Rozen Maiden. I've done quite a few videos on it already, so let's talk about the Rozen Maiden manga. Okay, so I've gotten a lot, and I mean a lot, of requests to talk about the Rozen Maiden manga. It isn't just because Rozen Maiden is obscure, but because the manga can be very hard to follow. It's mostly because of the end field and alternate timelines, which the latter I always struggle with because time travel shenanigans are always hard to follow for me. Now, to explain really quick as I cover the story, here's some terminology for Rozen Maiden to better explain what the manga's trying to do, because this took me a very long time to figure out myself. The end field is basically a hub world. Think like the hub world in the game Yume Nikki, where each door leads to an entirely different world, and doors in that world lead to a different one. Some lead to different timelines, a Rozen Maiden's pocket world, the thoughts or feelings of someone, sometimes random ones that just make no sense. And the only ones I believe is more difficult is worlds in which Rozen Maidens don't exist, because that means there's no magic, I guess, in that world tying it to the end field. Sometimes timeline merge theory can occur, which makes traveling to what I call the unwound world much easier, as seen with the main plot of the 2013 anime Rozen Maiden Rewind. A Rozen Maiden's soul is basically called a Rozen Mystica. Unlike a person's soul where it's a whole, a Rozen Maiden's soul is only a shard of 7. The plan for Rozen was to slowly fuse each shard back together to create his dream girl, Alice. If you've seen the movie 9, then this concept is a little easier to understand, which I recommend anyway because that movie's really cool. A Rozen Maiden gains power from a human soul, and this is called a medium. Without it, they will either go back to sleep mode, or they will be very weak by comparison. The age and condition of the soul matters as well, like those who are elderly or sickly, like Soul Seiseki and Suiginto's mediums, because you're basically draining their life force at that point, and killing a human is a big no-no for a Rozen Maiden. They're supposed to kill each other, not humans. Hopefully these are terms easy to understand. I know it gets really confusing, so let's get started. Jun Sakurada is a 14-year-old hikikomori following being severely bullied in school for his hobbies. His sister Nori tries to help coax him out of his room, but she's a kid herself, so she doesn't know how to help him. One day he receives a letter in his drawer along with the mail saying, "Will you wind or not wind?" Frequently buying scams online and fake cursed items, he believes this is just part of those scams that he buys, so he circles wind, where he is then gifted the Rozen Maiden doll Shinku. Rozen Maidens are 7 dolls made by the infamous and mysterious doll maker Rozen with the intent of making the perfect little girl. The dolls' souls are basically a fragment of one soul and are supposed to fight each other to the death, so one doll standing is fusing all the Rozen Mystica together, and that will make her Alice, Rozen's ideal version of the perfect little girl. These fights are called the Alice game, and while some dolls want to become Alice, like Suiginto, others don't want to die and fight like Hina Ichigo and Sui Seiseki. Now, if you're familiar with the anime, the first 4 episodes are actually pretty close to the manga. I mean, the pace is a lot faster in the manga, and a lot of cutesy antics don't happen in the manga or are out of order. Like, Suiginto shows up a second time before Hina Ichigo is reintroduced. Shinku actually does lose her arm in the manga too. During the initial confrontation with Soul Seiseki, Suiginto shows up and completely overpowers Shinku and rips her arm off. Much like in the original anime, Shinku is crushed by this, but Jun wants to retrieve her arm from the end field and reattach it, with this particular end field for Soul Seiseki's master. Unlike the anime where Soul Seiseki's master was an old man who wanted his son back and his wife to wake up from her coma, Futaba, as he's initially introduced, is a lot crueler. He plans to murder his late brother's lover with the help of the twins as revenge for her moving on. Except it's a lot more complicated with a surprising twist that I forgot about all these years later. Basically, Futaba is not Futaba but his twin brother, Kazuha. Kazuha fell in love with a woman from abroad and planned to marry her, but Futaba opposed the marriage because he was too codependent on his twin brother. He came with them aboard the ship as they planned to elope, but the boat sank where Futaba died, the woman he loved went missing, and Kazuha was left to pick up the pieces alone. Except Kazuha couldn't live with the guilt of his brother dying because he wanted to elope a woman, and due to survivor's guilt, he picked up his twin brother's identity. And yes, to anyone who knows this sounds familiar or has been in this channel long enough, this is literally just the twin seal plot twist from Black Butler, and Kasumi's story from Persona 5 Royal. What is it with this channel of mine and doomed twins? So he wants to use the twins' power to kill his lover because he believes she moved on with her life while he's stuck in the past. If you're wondering how, it's because both twins were designed to heal the mind, but they could also kill someone if someone was fucking evil. So Seiseki because she could cut their soul tree, which takes away memories, while Soi Seiseki can rot and decay a soul tree from overwatering it, like what would happen to a real-life plant. So he needs both twins to basically kill her with dementia. Soi Seiseki opposed this, one because Rozen Maidens are not allowed to kill humans, and because it's just fucking evil, bro. Well, So Seiseki doesn't really agree with it, but goes along with it anyway because she is very, very loyal to Kazuha. This is because she grew resentment to Soi Seiseki. As twins, she always felt like they were close, but she lacked her own identity. She relates to Kazuha's struggles, and so she'll do anything to help him, also secretly making a pact with Suigento, who tells her where the woman's dream tree is, as she's also looking to kill someone. I initially thought this was Megu, Suigento's medium's shitty dad, but I don't think we ever found out who it was she was trying to kill. Anyway, so we face a big showdown in the Enfield, or dream world, where Kazuha finds out, thanks to Jun and the others, that his lover never actually moved on and mourned him for the rest of her life, making him deeply regret his actions and finally starting to have a change of heart. To make sure her master permanently had a change of heart, So Seiseki sacrificed herself by destroying his Enfield? Dream world, I think? I've never actually been able to figure out what she does here and why this kills her, but So Seiseki is the first casualty we see in the manga. Just like in Troimond, actually. Just as Soi Seiseki is going to take her sister's Rozen Mystica because Soi Seiseki wanted to make them together as one, Suigento shows up and steals it due to that deal earlier or whatever. The other dolls are furious and try to fight back, but Suigento is way stronger than them due to having a second Rozen Mystica being a huge power boost. The good thing is that Shinku's arm reattaches thanks to Jun, where Suigento says only their father, or something called a maestro, or some kind of magical doll apprentice or successor, can reattach and repair a Rozen Maiden. This is pretty heavy foreshadowing for Jun, as it's clear he's a lot more powerful than anyone expected. Thus ends the fight for now, leaving Soi Seiseki in grief and trying to process the loss of her twin sister. I should mention that during these plot breaks, we get massive introspection on Jun and the themes of loneliness, coming of age, facing your anxiety, existence, and way more that are honestly really fascinating and really reflect well on the Rozen Maidens. During all this, we get some really adorable slice of life moments. The plot picks up again when Jun's teacher shows up to basically act like everything that happened wasn't his fault, or that it wasn't a big deal, and that he wasn't relentlessly bullied for it, and that everyone's so excited to see him again. You know, the usual fake bullshit. This gives Jun a very, very severe panic attack and leads to a flashback for why he's a shut-in, where those mysterious white thorns keep showing up every time he has a panic attack. Basically, as a child, Jun loved sewing and had a lot of talent for it too. The older he got, the more he was teased about it, and this came ahead in middle school where male students were harassing him. I think it's fucking stupid to gender any hobby, but that's just me. His school ends up having a cultural festival where one of the girls is basically the equivalent of like a snow queen or something, or a princess. So Jun ends up designing a dress just off the top of his head in his notebook. What he didn't realize is that the notebook he turned in with his homework was the one he designed the dress in, and it ended up being submitted to the school by said teacher. The teacher from earlier was the one who put it up and announced Jun designed it, making Jun throw up and have an extremely severe panic attack from the stress, while students around him kept calling him things like a pervert, gay slurs in older translations, and even more just because he was a boy who liked designing clothes. This is what caused Jun to become a hikikomori and refuse to leave his room, only just now finally recovering thanks to the Rozen Maidens. Though while Jun had a bit of a setback following his teacher's visit and a depressive episode, he ends up in a sea of consciousness with Sousei Seki's spirit, where he ends up so deep that he actually remembers meeting Rozen as a child. Rozen had a living puppet show where he basically confessed his backstory as a man who lived for over 2,000 years in his attempts to make the perfect little girl, Alice. I think it also vaguely implies that Rozen Mystica is a fragmented Philosopher's Stone at this point, maybe? Anyway, so Jun tries to know more about how the hell he met Rozen, but Laplace stops him and sends him back to his PTSD dream again because Laplace is chaotic neutral. I don't think we ever get a solid answer for what Laplace is, other than he's some sort of demon or otherworldly creature who serves Rozen, who only gives us lore breadcrumbs when we need it, and is too neutral of a party. He's also just so we remember that this whole thing is inspired by Alice in Wonderland, since he's inspired by the rabbit in the beginning of the story. In this dream, Jun's consciousness connects with Suiginto, where he sees that this flaw she hangs over her head isn't just because she's the first Rozen Maiden doll, but because the wings in her back cause massive cracks that are extremely painful for her. He sees deep down she just wants to be recognized and loved by her creator instead of being viewed as a complete failure. Jun tries to confront Suiginto as they're kinda two sides to the same coin, feeling unloved and lonely, but is soon attacked by the sighting of the 7th Rozen Maiden doll, Kirakishou. Yet before real confrontation begins, Jun wakes up and Suiginto begins to bond and love her new master, Megu. Megu, by the way, is a girl with a fatal heart condition who's accepted her death a long time and just wants to die. Due to Suiginto draining a lot of her power on purpose, she hopes Suiginto will finally kill her. The two relate to each other, calling themselves junk due to their flaws, and Suiginto grows to adore Megu deeply. Meanwhile, Hina Ichigo's old medium's granddaughter shows up, announcing she wants to take her back to France. This is because Hina Ichigo's old medium was the one who gave Hina Ichigo's abandonment trauma while she was just recovering from it, and wants to fulfill her grandmother's wishes by bringing her back home like she promised all those years ago. Before Hina Ichigo can make a decision if she wants to stay or go, or even figure out what the hell's going on, she's lured into a trap in a dream by the 7th Rozen Maiden doll, Kirakishou. Kirakishou uses Hina Ichigo's loneliness against her and uses her thorns to kill her, making adorable Hina Ichigo the second casualty of the Alice game. However, she didn't take her Rozen Mystica, where Hina Ichigo's artificial spirit gives it to Shinku to make her stronger, because the 7th doll is extremely powerful. This is likely because the 7th doll doesn't physically exist. She basically only exists in dreams, the Enfield, gaps in reality, and more, because Rozen never physically made her. He made her soul, artificial spirit, and design, but he never went past that. She's basically, like, metaphysical, I guess? This made Kirakishou deeply desire to be physically real, planning to take the bodies of her sisters to find one that'll be able to house her like some kind of parasite. She also steals the masters of other Rozen Maidens to suck their life force as their medium. Seems like cheating to me, but oh well. Kirakishou at this point is very heavily portrayed like some sort of parasite. Sousei Seki's body is also missing too. She was originally with her previous medium or caretaker Kazuha, but in just a few days her body was stolen by Kirakishou, with Sousei Seki finding her hat in the Enfield. How she's capable of doing this if Kirakishou doesn't physically exist, I don't know, but I think her white vines pulled her body in from like an opening or a door somewhere. Sousei Seki and Shinku begin to investigate the Enfield to find Kirakishou and confront her, but in trying to rescue Jun, once Laplace tells him how her powers work, Shinku is swallowed by Kirakishou and Sousei Seki ends up in an illusion created by Kirakishou. The two quickly realize that Kirakishou can only attack mediums if they're contracted to a Rozen Maiden, so both cut their ties with Jun to save him. Jun finds out about all this too late, and Laplace offers him a way to save the girls and everyone else by leading him out to a pocket world that can communicate with alternate realities and the current one. This is actually where the original first half of Rozen Maiden ended, when Peach Pit went on a hiatus due to some stuff I'll mention a little later, because I believe this really does affect the writing a little bit. We are then introduced to Unwound June in Act 2 of the Rozen Maiden manga, and thus begins the plot of the Rozen Maiden Rewind anime, which I like to call the Unwound arc. TLDR, this is Jun Sakurada who never wound the Rozen Maidens, thus they don't exist in his world. Not sure what that means for Michan and the others, but whatever. Unwound Jun eventually goes back to school, forcing himself, but lives an extremely lonely and depressed life because he never recovered from his trauma thanks to the Rozen Maidens. Since this arc wasn't done too terribly in the 2013 anime, but it missed a lot of heavy beats here, but TLDR, for those who don't want to watch that video, Unwound June accidentally made a body for Kirakishou that brought her to reality and nearly destroyed the fabric of reality itself because she was in a world where Rozen Maidens aren't supposed to exist, and she was using Soul Seiseki's body. Reviving Soul Seiseki thanks to her body returning to normal, and Suginto temporarily giving her Rozen Mystica to her, at least she's back temporarily. With reality restored, Unwound June has a newfound sense of hope and is finally healing from his emotional wounds, while June is going back to school with a newfound sense of hope. However, just as the gang is piecing together how to rescue Megu and the other mediums from Kirakishou, Megu suddenly wakes up from her coma and announces she's being discharged from the hospital. Which, if you remember, is very sus since Megu's heart condition is fatal. Double sus that she has one of Kirakishou's ugly bootlegs, as well as attending Jun's school as a student. Triple sus is that a new student at Jun's school, since he returned, named Kaito, immediately recognizes Jun's talent at creating life with dolls from love or whatever. Even crazier, whenever Kaito shows up for some reason, it's only around Jun and never another student. His name isn't even on the student list. To make things even more shocking, Soul Seiseki and Suiginto discover Jun is actually encased in crystal in Kirakishou's palace, which means he should be in a coma since all the mediums she feeds off of go into a coma and are stuck in blissful dreams. During all this, days later at school, Jun was confronted by Megu about something, only for her to kick him down a flight of stairs near the school's rooftop, and is vaguely seen with strings like some sort of puppet is controlling her. Of course, falling down a flight of stairs and getting your shit kicked in kinda puts you in the hospital, so Jun is currently in a coma likely caused by Kirakishou and Megu. All the dolls begin investigating the Enfield in a mad dash to try and save Jun, where Michan, Kanaria's medium, is attacked by Kirakishou's ugly bootleg. And meanwhile, Tomoe discovers the school is actually fake, with all the students being puppeted, where it seems like maybe the puppet master is one of Kirakishou's bootlegs. In trying to rescue Tomoe, the dolls and Michan are confronted by an army of Kirakishou's bootlegs she's controlling due to being pretty weak right now after the Unwound World fight. We also discover that the one making her bootlegs is Kaito? He plans to make her new sisters in a body, while the girls discover that Kirakishou has created a fake world that they all believed was real for a hot second. Because Kirakishou doesn't know the human world like the dolls, she can only recreate things on a surface level. So the humans sucked in were pretty quick to figure out that this is a dream, and now they've got to find a way to break out of Kirakishou's world and back to reality to save everybody. The girls then split up, so Shinku and the twins go to Unwound June for help, with Kanaria and Suiginto trying to rescue Michan, who is kidnapped while trying to save Tomoe. Where Kanaria and Suiginto find one of Kirakishou's bootleg fake sisters that looks like a derivative of her, only to then split in half and sprout spider legs. Yeah, Kirakishou's fake sisters are kind of fucking terrifying. Well, Michan is forced to make dresses for Kaito, who seems to act like he's Rozen, and Kirakishou treats like he made her. If you remember Enju from the Troyman anime, I guess it's a similar thing going on, where I guess the audience is supposed to think he's Rozen at this point, but I mean, anybody reading the manga has seen Troyman, so they know this isn't Rozen. Meanwhile, Unwound June is pulled into the end field by Kirakishou's ugly bootleg, I think, and I could be wrong, but Kirakishou is so broken right now following that fight that I think her mind might have fractured into several pieces. It seems to be the nice side of herself because this bootleg is actually helping the girls and is very nice to Unwound June. Well, we see that Kaito's working on a body for Kirakishou in the form of some sort of egg, saying that Alice will be born instead of Kirakishou. So this part starts to get really confusing really quick. It's not that it's rushed, far from it, considering how long Rozen Maiden actually took to finish. This manga started in 2002 and wouldn't finish until around 2013 or 2014, I think, but it's a lot harder to grasp the concepts for someone who gets lost in this kind of storytelling. Everyone kind of ends up teleporting from place to place, really, and while Unwound June saved June from Kirakishou's crystals, he and Tomoe are flung into Kirakishou's junk space where Tomoe finds Hina Ichigo's body and in Kirakishou's junk room and snaps June out of his thoughts of unaliving himself because Megu implanted that in him. That part I am very confused about. I had a tough time understanding that. Meanwhile, through all of this are very heavy Alice in Wonderland references throughout several rooms that Shinku and the others end up in, and the twins then come across horrifying Kirakishou bootlegs named Judica and Madeline this time. Again, both seem to be a derivative of Kirakishou, while seemingly her interpretation of Suiseiseki and Soseiseki. Kirakishou's very few in-person scenes also have her referenced nursery rhymes, with her introduction to Shinku being the Who Killed Cock Robin poem. So it's clear that these are based off herself, because their introduction is them singing Rockabye Baby, a nursery song. Suiseiseki fights off the twins as Shinku and Kanaria escape but dies in the process. Soseiseki also gives her Rozen Mystica back to Suiginto following this, I think because the terms of their situation was up. Thus Soseiseki becomes a casualty again and Suiseiseki is now the third doll death. More flinging around for Alice in Wonderland references. Suiginto comes across Kirakishou's giant crystal castle again and finds a place all mediums are encased in, so she's gonna attempt to free them. Well, Jun helps Kanaria and Shinku in a rose garden they're currently attacked in, where Kanaria dies protecting Shinku, making her casualty number 4 in the Alice game. Now that I think about it, the order of deaths in the manga is very eerily close to Troyman's, so by this logic, Suiginto's death is next if we're going off Troyman. However, Kanaria is technically not dead yet, as Michan has her wind-up key, so she thinks that maybe it'll revive Kanaria, yet we see that it's in Kaito's workshop, where we see the grand plan is to fuse Kirakishou's soul or spirit with Megu's human body, thus giving her a human body, and possibly making her Alice since she'll be human. Also killing Megu, which is what she wanted. Well, Megu confesses she wants to purposefully make Suiginto kind of suffer watching her die because she thinks Suiginto's too nice or whatever. Yeah, I can't tell if all this is just Kirakishou like manipulating Megu, since we could tell that a lot of the horrible things she said to Jun was due to being possessed by Kirakishou, sort of. But we also see she is kind of insane and kind of a bitch to people just because she wants to die a beautiful death already. The remaining gang all end up in a room of gears where a portrait on the wall makes the dolls realize that this is a modified version of the room they initially woke up in and played together in as each doll was being made. This is also where Suiginto and Shinku started fighting, mostly because they just honestly have very clashing personalities. Though, Suiginto also reminded Shinku that she's not special or the last doll, where we get a flashback of their life in this miniature garden / playroom. Everyone had their fun and spent their days in peaceful bliss, the way each sister always wanted, and why they don't want to hurt each other. However, they all soon realize a seventh doll would be born and they would be told to leave and find masters. Everyone left, but Suiginto and Shinku met at one point, I think during the Taisho period if we're going off Rozen Maiden 0, where Suiginto says the reason she wants to be Alice is to kill Rozen for making her in the first place. Angry at an existence that wasn't good enough and was never good enough despite being the first living doll he ever made. The first fully living doll, Rozen Maiden 0, is very confusing, which honestly I think makes Suiginto the most realistic character, since I think just about anyone in her position would probably have intense resentment for a father making her. I mean, let's be real, Rozen is the dad who went to get the milk. Coming into a chest room now, Kaito introduces his, quote, new doll, which is Suisei Seki with her eyes sewn shut, which is pretty fucking horrifying. I don't know what it is about Kirakishou, but this girl really loves turning this into a horror series. As Jun is trying to rescue Suisei Seki, Suiginto is horrified to see the egg hatch to reveal Kirakishou is possessing Megu's body, sprouting wings just as she begins to fly towards her sisters, just as Megu always dreamed of having wings. While Michan tries to turn the tide of the fight by finally managing to grab Kanaria's key from Kaito to wind her up, but it's too late and Kanaria's Risen Mystica flies out of her and Suisei Seki's and into Megu Kira, which makes her even more powerful. Meanwhile, Unwound Jun comes across a world that mimics this mysterious puppet show I talked about earlier that he saw as a kid that turned out to be Rozen. In this world is where Rozen resides, where Unwound Jun learns that Alice was Rozen's real daughter who died. He believed he could recreate her as a doll and revive her using the Rozen Mystica reassembled. Which kinda says to me that a Rozen Mystica is a Philosopher's Stone, but that's just my 2 cents. However, after making one doll, he lost sight of his initial goal of bringing his daughter back and instead sought to make an ideal version of his daughter. Rozen explains that the Rozen Mystica seemed to be a piece of his soul. If you've seen the movie 9, then this makes way more sense. However, splitting his soul into so many pieces made him something of an omnipresent spirit instead. He doesn't even remember what he looks like. Seen when he shows his face is hollowed out now because he's just completely lost himself. Unwound Jun asks Rozen to end the Alice game, but Rozen confesses he has no power to stop it anymore, but maybe one of the dolls can figure it out. Suiginto tries to rescue Megu Kira, only for her ribs to burst open from her human body, rejecting a Rozen Mystica and killing Suiginto. Ha! I called it, she would die next. Megu betrays Kirakishou though. 1, because Jun realizes all Megu wanted was to be loved by her father, much like Suiginto, and 2, because she wanted Suiginto to kill her. Even giving the Rozen Mystica for a second so Suiginto can kill her before dying herself. Megu dying breaks all the power Kirakishou had, where Jun's appearance changes to a true maestro or true successor of Rozen. Because Kirakishou is back to being pretty much powerless now that her control and powers are falling apart, it turns out Kaito was never real and was literally created by Kirakishou. He crumbles away and yeah, that was fucking confusing as shit. The Megu who threw Jun down the stairs and kicked his shit in also didn't exist? So this entire ordeal had to be someone's dream then, right? If it's not Jun's. Turns out this was all Megu's dream that Kirakishou was housing everything in, and since Megu is dead now, the dream world Kirakishou was using to create everything crumbled away. So after being left alone again, now that her creations disappeared, Kirakishou starts sobbing and confesses that all she ever wanted was to be like her sisters, living with people and getting to spend time with them the way they all could with each other. Being confined to only dreams in the Enfield drove her completely mad, and it's when Shinku has a deep sympathy for her. It's even more heartbreaking when we get a flashback from her perspective of everything and how desperately she wanted to have human connection and to play with her sisters the way they all played with each other. With her power drained to nothing now that Megu is dead and the humans she was feeding off of are now freed, Kirakishou basically insta-dies despite Unwound Jun and Shinku trying to save her. Shinku was even ready to make Kirakishou Alice, but unfortunately she died before she could become her. She promises that Kirakishou will not be alone anymore, as she's tired of being alone, as she tells Shinku, absorbing her Rozen Mystica with the promise of using the power of Alice to make a world where all the sisters can be together, making Shinku the winner of the Alice game, which we all know would happen because Rozen loves to play favorites. Also, this illustration of Shinku becoming Alice is just so gorgeous. Oh my goodness. At last, Alice is awakened, and we get this weird metaphysical interaction between, quote, Alice and Rozen. She confesses she's miserable without her sisters. She's not happy being one person with them and asks for her sisters to be brought back. His favoritism for Shinku shines again and agrees to split her back into 7 Rozen Mystica again with the help of Jun. Shinku uses the last wish of hers to bring all her sisters back to life. We're then flashed forward a bit with all the girls revived and happy together again. The twins plan to meet with Kazuha again for tea. Suginto confronts Megu's father, who's grieving her death despite severely emotionally neglecting her, by telling him that all Megu wanted was his love, as Suginto learned to let go of her own resentment for Rozen. Kanaria is living her best life with Michan. It's vaguely implied Tomoe and Hina are living together again, with Hina's previous medium's granddaughter planning to visit in the summer, or at least that's the way it seems from the translation I read. It could be wrong. That translation is not out yet at the time I'm making this video. Jun is back in school, as he's now happy and looking forward to a bright future. Even Kirakishou has a physical body now and lives with unwound Jun, who she's happy to call her master. She's also, not insane and creepy now, so that's good. Where Jun bursts into unwound Jun's room to bring Kirakishou along for the next adventure. What is this adventure? Well, reviving all her sisters shattered Shinku's Rozen Mystica, happily sacrificing herself because she genuinely loves her sisters. So, Jun is going to travel around after school to find a new Rozen Mystica for Shinku. The gang are all then going to the Enfield. We get one last shot of Shinku sleeping peacefully in a workshop, and thus ends Rozen Maiden. Personally, I really like the ending. I don't personally know what the community thinks about Kirakishou, because unfortunately a large majority of Rozen Maiden fans I've seen who actually read the manga don't speak any English. Despite her evil actions, I really like Kirakishou. Honestly, the beginning half, or rather part 1, is pretty easy to understand, but part 2, oh my god, my brain was frying trying to understand all these concepts. Unfortunately, as I was doing this video, some chapters were out of order because they were put online by a fan translation team, which made things even more confusing. Thankfully, a collector's edition is releasing of Rozen Maiden, and I may or may not have bought the first 3 volumes for this video, and I will continue to buy more. Also, Peach Pit took about a 4-year hiatus from Rozen Maiden after the duo became sick and their original publisher dropped them for it. So that definitely affected the story, I think, since anyone's story would change if they stopped at a cliffhanger and then came back years later. I mean, look at Nana. It's been on a hiatus since 2009, and it's gonna stay that way because coming back from a cliffhanger all these years later is going to change what you had planned and cause major problems for the story. Not saying I think it was bad or rushed. It's all really great with themes of existence, life, living, overcoming your fears, determination, and more, but I do think a lot of concepts were kind of fucking insane and hard to grasp. Like, Kaito being a literal figment of Kirakishou's imagination is foreshadowed. We only see him interact with Jun in the dream world and no one else, but, I still hate it and I still think it's kind of stupid. I still really love the manga though, even for as confusing as it is. So, you guys let me know what you think of the Rozen Maiden manga, and whether or not you want to see me cover Rozen Maiden Zero, the prequel, or rather, the official prequel by the Peach Pit team. It is extremely confusing to tackle, but as always, let me know down below. Hey guys, thanks for watching! If you liked the video, consider liking and subscribing. For any subscribers, new or old, who'd like to help with video ideas, then I have a Discord server. And if you'd like to help support the channel, then consider donating to my Ko-fi page. See you next time!